Can we have our next submitter?
Yes, next submitter is 3313, Dr. Alison Vaughan for the SPCA on the supplementary agenda on page 13.
Miss Vaughan, there you are. Welcome. Thank you for your submission. Thank you for your submission. And as you will know, we've read the submissions. Thank you very much for submitting on behalf of the SPCA. And we're looking for you to give, in the next 10 minutes, to give your highlights of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. SPCA, before I start, I just want to say we really welcome this opportunity to present on the Waikato District Council Dog Control Bylaw and Policy hearing. And I do appreciate that you have listened to quite a large number of presentations already today, and that we're also creeping up on lunchtime. So I will jump straight in with our key points we've raised in our submission. So I want to begin with dog exercise areas. SPCA is concerned by the Council's proposal to remove 7 off-lead dog exercise areas without first introducing appropriate replacements. So we would just caution that removal of multiple off-leash dog exercise areas must be balanced with the creation and designation of additional appropriate off-leash areas. This is to allow dog owners to comply with the proposed restrictions without negatively impacting their dog's welfare or their own quality of life. Providing dog owners with safe and appropriate areas for exercising their dogs is important to facilitate the owner's obligations to meet their dog's physical health and behavioural needs under the Animal Welfare Act. And I just want to clarify, in case this has come up, on-lead exercise is not a replacement for off-leash exercise. It doesn't fully allow them to meet their physical and mental needs alone. And as any of you who have dogs will know, dogs who aren't provided with sufficient mental or physical exercise can be both bored and have a lot of energy. And we see that where dogs are not provided with an appropriate outlet for energy, they can develop problem behaviours such as excessive barking, destructive behaviours, reactivity or aggression, or depression. So exercise represents an easy, inexpensive, welfare-friendly tool to assist with dealing with nuisance behaviours. The provision of off-leash areas in this perspective is therefore a key component of the Council's objective to prevent or abate nuisances. I would also point out from a human behaviour change perspective, because a lot of what SPCA deals with is human behaviour change, that we not only need rules and enforcement, but we also need to address potential barriers to complying with rules. So for example, if Council have identified an area that is unsuitable for use as an off-leash dog exercise areas, if we do not provide an appropriate alternative, realistically, people are likely to continue using it, and this will become a constant source of friction. So we need to make it easy for people to do the right thing. It's also important to note that not everyone in our communities has a vehicle, so we just need to factor that in when we're considering what's accessible. I do also note that Council reports yearly increases in the number of dogs within the district. And the last report indicated there's over 15,000 known dogs within the district. So there may even be a case for greater provision of off-leash exercise areas. And finally, on that point, the Society believes that the Council must take on board feedback from local residents regarding whether the new bylaw and policy provide adequate provision of dog exercise areas. I'll now move on to our next point, which is the issue of dog permits in rural areas. So we are concerned that there may be unintended consequences resulting from these restrictions, particularly where this may discourage rehoming or fostering. As you will be aware, SPCA is very much involved in both of these areas, and we are concerned that this could potentially impact the ability of rescues and indeed the Council plans to find permanent homes for dogs in their care. And we do place a lot of dogs in rural areas. It's also not quite clear to us how the proposed permits would impact fostering, which is a vital resource for many rescues, including SPCA. So while we really appreciate the Council's concern for dog welfare, we do question whether the proposed bylaw would achieve the stated aim of improving dog welfare. And we are concerned that this proposal may instead penalise responsible dog owners and potentially reduce compliance with Council bylaws and policies. It's really important when we're looking at legislation and enacting rules that when they have the aim of better protecting animals, we don't instead create rules that have the opposite effect. So moving on to integration of dogs into communities. We appreciate that Council have to achieve this tricky balance between providing for the ability of people to enjoy the benefits of dog ownership and provide for the exercise and recreational needs to dogs and their owners, with minimising danger, distress and nuisance to the community generally. So SPCA, as an evidence-based animal welfare organisation, advocates for evidence-based measures such as community education and proper socialisation of dogs to reduce the risk of dog bites and other nuisance. So I'm a behaviourist myself. Fear is a very common cause of aggressive behaviour, and what we often see with SPCAs where dogs haven't been adequately socialised, this can often lead to quite challenging behaviours. So SPCA would encourage Council to consider ways that they can safely increase integration of dogs into our communities as a way of facilitating socialisation. Adequate socialisation is a key component both of improving dog welfare and creating safer communities. For example, some other councils have taken an approach of, when they were reviewing their bylaws, of changing business areas to allow dogs on leash. And that was in recognition that there are these things we can do to allow for greater integration in society without risking nuisance or distress to the rest of the community. I'll now speak to my final point before opening for questions, and that's just on the topic of menacing dogs. So SPCA advocates for inclusion of a pathway to appealing menacing classification with eligibility based on demonstrated steps towards responsible dog ownership. So this is in line with Council's stated 3 E's approach of engagement, education and enforcement. And once again, this goes back to facilitating behaviour change. We want, and Council wants, for dog owners to become responsible dog owners. And so it's important we provide pathways and incentives to help with adoption of responsible dog ownership practices. So we've also seen this approach adopted in other areas. For example, Auckland Council adopted this back in 2019. And this incentivises behaviour change and adoption of responsible dog ownership practices. So wherever possible, we advocate for these evidence-based measures such as education, incentives and proper socialisation of dogs to reduce the risk of nuisance to our communities while welcoming dog owners. That's my main points, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the Council has.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughan. Are there any questions? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for your submission. Articulated really well. Just in respect of your suggestion regarding the menacing classification, I'm assuming you're aware that there is a process by which owners that have had that classification made of their dog may appeal.
Yes.
As prescribed.
Yes, so we're aware of the. Yes, we are. So what Auckland Council have done is introduce an additional pathway by which people can demonstrate that they are now more responsible dog owners and have that pathway.
Yeah, and then obviously the commissioners that actually hear that appeal may consider any other information in making their decision to whether actually uphold or rescind. So you're aware of all of that anyway. There is still a process in place. Yeah, great.
Councillor Church.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alison. My question's around the free dog run areas off leash. One of the areas that's proposed to be taken away is a wide berm that has no fences, a wide grass berm that has no fences and butts up to a bush that is not part of the free dog running area, as an example. So it's just a strip of land beside a road. So my question is really around that well-being. You've talked about socialisation, I understand that, is around what would you consider from SPCA's point of view for council as a guidance for the lowest level of service for a off-leash area? Like other people talked about water or fences or shade. So what's in your opinion, where should we should we be providing for those off-leash areas that we do have or plan?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we would be very keen to engage with Council as well in exploring these issues on specific sites. So some things that we commonly see are, of course, fencing, particularly where there's a risk of roads or other areas where we would not want dogs to breach. So fencing is a great one. Obviously, providing places where owners can dispose of their dogs' waste, because that's a really important part of both human and dog health and the pleasant use of those facilities. We have seen some quite exciting things in other areas where there's been provision of agility setups and other things which have been very welcomed by the community.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. There's no more questions for you, Ms. Vaughan, but thank you. You bring another dimension, and we always welcome that. Thank you for taking the time to submit to us.
Thank you very much. And we just want to restate, if Council are keen to engage after this as well, we are here to support you, and we engage with many councils throughout New Zealand.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark.
Next speaker is submitter 2377, Andrew Eatock, on page 292.
Good morning, Mr. Good morning. Yes, still good morning, Mr. Eatock. I'm afraid we can't see your face, but that may be your choice. I think you're clearly lit from the window. However, we can now not see you at all.
Oh, sorry, did something happen? Sorry, I'm just trying to. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's just probably in the trying to get somewhere that's.
No, we're getting
better.
Not quite up to the identity kit version, but we're getting there. Thank you. No, look, we can see you. We can hear you. We have received your submission. We have also read it along with all the others. And we'd like you to take the next 10 minutes just to tell us what the salient points are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Moving from the UK 20 years ago, we brought our small dogs with us. We chose to live in the rural Waikato because we could enjoy living with our dogs here without having to worry about them needing to be authorised by local government. Since then, we have bred a litter to keep our lines going, the last litter being over a year ago. Our dogs are our family. This permitting system threatens us not just now, but also our future dog ownership. The essence of this system is the process of removing dogs from owners. I do not accept the premise that only bad dog owners are going to be affected by this law change. Even if a permit is granted, there is the ongoing threat that the permit could be withdrawn, leaving owners having to decide which dogs to keep and which must be let go. Permits are likely to be gained easily at first, but who knows what criteria will be decided on in the future. Over time, there is the potential for permits to become harder to get or for criteria to change, with little recourse and certainly not another forum for discussion like we have here today. I also note on the current Waikato District Council application for permit to keep more than 2 dogs, it states, Waikato District Council reserves the right to exercise discretion in the issue of permits to keep more than 2 dogs, even though the requirements may be met. This does not inspire confidence in our ownership of dogs. This policy is likely to lead to more dogs being abandoned, both through an inability to gain a permit and the increased costs associated with dog ownership. I also disagree with the mindset of yes to permit approval, but just don't permit my dogs. I think that this attitude appears to be selling out all other dog owners and seems pretty low to me. Implementing and maintaining the permitting system for over 900 households and upwards over the years is likely to be very expensive, with the costs directed towards the good dog owners. The very few bad dog owners this policy is directed towards may even avoid the implementation, either through dog ownership going underground or dogs being registered with other councils via friends. This proposal and the council sentiment seen on the internet seems to be anti-dog ownership disguised as helping dogs. There seems to be the impression that all dogs are large, vicious things that poo everywhere, which all good dog owners will take exception to. We need to keep the response in perspective. Within the district, we have had 7 bad owners out of over 900 households, and this is all over 5 years time period. I also do not agree with removal of the 6 dog exercise areas with the headline addition of the Tuakau exercise area being added, when until this becomes a cemetery in 2025, when all dogs again will be banned from this area also. Dogs need to be able to run around, meet other dogs, sniff things, and basically enjoy the life of being a dog. These needs seem to be absent from the council's view. I am sure that if the only time you went out, you had to have a leash on, you would see things very differently. I get the impression that dogs should be grateful they are leashed pretty much everywhere. Humanity has taken over all the available land, and dogs are now dependent upon us for their very existence. We need to make sure that these dogs, their quality of life and needs are protected rather than just being dismissed. That's all I've got to say today, but thank you very much for your time.
Said very eloquently as well. Thank you. Thank you for your submission. Are there any questions for Mr. Etuk? No, I think, sorry, Councillor Church.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Etuk. You brought up cemeteries, and so what are you saying, that you would prefer that council allow dogs to visit cemeteries? Can you expand on your comments, please?
Yes, certainly. I'm saying in the Tuakau instance, they will be banned because of it becoming a cemetery. I personally don't have a problem with dogs in cemeteries. You know, I agree that some people might like it, but then again, some people, owners who have died, may have liked dogs to be on cemeteries as well. So I don't necessarily assume that dogs being on cemeteries is in itself a bad thing. You know, bad dog ownership wherever it is, it would be a problem in my view.
Sure, just supplementary, Madam Chair, just on that. You outlined the issues really well around cemeteries, but I guess we have to make a decision as council as to, as example, whether they're there or not, and for those issues. So if you had to the decision, what would your thought be around cemeteries and dogs?
Well, I don't think having them on a leash in a cemetery would be an undue burden upon people. Yes, obviously, probably running around on the cemetery would be a disrespectful thing, but I don't think having a dog on a lead. I mean, it could even be the owner of the dog that's died, for example, and then just say the dog can't go. It seems not very good. Yes.
No, there don't appear to be any more questions, but thank you very much for your very eloquent submission, and also thank you for taking the time to do that. We really appreciate that you do it.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Ms. Clark, where are we up to?
Next submitter is 3295 Anna Dalberg for Pause a While Animal Sanctuary on page 18.
Ms. Dahlberg, we can see you, but you're still connecting to audio, I believe. Right, I think she has just dropped off there. Ms. Clark, do we have Ms. Dash in the waiting room?
We do. Do you want me to move on to her?
I think we will, and if you can have a conversation with Ms. Dahlberg, we can see her, but we can't. She's having audio problems. Thank you.
Our next speaker is 3215 Katrina Dash on page 92.
Ms. Dash, we can see that you are connected. If you turn your camera on, and also your unmute yourself from that lovely background. Obviously, you're on the beach. We all wish we had that. Thank you for your submission. You can just confirming you can hear us.
Yes, I can. Thank
Okay,
you.
lovely. Thank you for your submission. We have read it, as we've read all of them. You've got 10 minutes to tell us the highlights for you and what you want us to do from that. So thank you, and welcome to start.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, councillors. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. I believe placing these permits on the properties with more than 2 dogs is not really going to resolve the issue I think the council are trying to resolve. Unfortunately, generally bad owners are going to be bad owners, whether they're permitted or not. The behaviour change I believe that council are trying to get won't be resolved with this. I've personally spent a considerable amount of money and effort and time upgrading our property for our dogs when we were assessed for the selected dog owner criteria. And it was actually commented by one of your officers when they came out how well our property was presented and for our dogs. And under the proposed changes that I now need to apply for a new consent or a new permit for our property, even though it's really been assessed as a good property. And it's quite hard for me because currently I only have 2 dogs. We're looking to get a 3rd, but I also babysit or look after my friends' dogs. And I don't know often how long that may be for. Sometimes it could be a week, 2 weeks. And sometimes I'm not sure how many dogs we may have here, but they are all cared for, and that's why we look after them. So when it comes to actually applying for the permit that you're proposing, I'm not entirely sure how I would apply for it. So these proposed permits also, to do them justice in implementing them, I would like to have seen council come out and assess all the properties, because otherwise it just becomes a bit of a rubber stamping exercise, and again doesn't really achieve what I think you're trying to achieve with putting these proposals in place. It also kind of gives a little bit of an appearance that it's a bit of a money-raising scheme, penalising the good dog owners to help fight the unregistered or the bad dog owners. The next thing I've been thinking about is with the dog parks in mind, and I'd actually like to see council upgrade these and extend them rather than what we're proposing to do. As I live rurally, but I really believe in my dogs being socialised, so I actually take them to dog parks to socialise them. And I often go on other dog council websites to look at their dog parks and what they've got available, because it's nice to get out and about and see what else is around in our communities. And I go and have lunch and I have coffee in those areas. So I actually bring my tourist dollars to those locations. And I'd like to see us try and encourage some like Hamilton City people to come out and spend their money and time in our community rather than in Hamilton City. So it's actually an opportunity for the Waikato District Council, not a negative. And then the other thing in terms of cemeteries, I lost my sister a couple of years ago to cancer. And it's really important for me to take my dogs, who she was very close to, often out there to visit them. And it's kind of a healing process for both me and the dog. And so to see dogs no longer allowed to go to a cemetery is quite close to my heart. I'm always really considerate and respectful when I take the dogs to the cemetery. And I wouldn't like to see dogs running wild. That would be really heartbreaking. But I do like to have the opportunity to still take them along with me, spend time with my sister. So that's kind of my main point. But I'd really like to see the council look at incentivising people and then try and not put barriers in place. I'd like to see you sort of understanding what those barriers are in place that are preventing bad owners from doing the right thing. You know, we've got some really great animal behaviourists in the Waikato community, some of you of which you've heard from. It'd be great to see the Waikato District Council take the opportunity to actually sit down with these people and look at ways that we can actually put things in place that are actually going to work and do what you're trying to achieve. So I support you guys. You're doing a really good job, but I'd like to actually see us do it in a more progressive way rather than an oppressive way.
Thank you, Ms. Dage. And just before I go to any questions, you'll be aware, I think you're aware that we're proposing to have dogs allowed on a lead on the sidelines. So when you go and watch kids rugby or whatever, you've got your dogs on a leash with you, but they're not to run on the sports surfaces. And sadly, we do see them having a great time on the sports fields, and sometimes not being appropriately collected up, if you see the point. Are there any questions for Ms. Dage? No, I think you've made your points. Thank you. Appreciate that, and thank you very much for taking the time to submit. And we do welcome that. Thank you.
Appreciate the challenge. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Clark, how did we get on with Ms. Dahlberg?
I believe it's sorted and she's back in the waiting room now.
Jolly good. Let her in. Thank you.
Yep, so next minute is 3295 Anna Dahlberg for Pools of Wiles Animal Sanctuary, page 18.
Hello, Ms. Dahlberg. I think you are on mute there. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Matt, can you bring your troubleshooting abilities to the fore, please?
Hannah's just giving her a ring.
Perfect. You can just bear with us for a little while.
It doesn't work. Can we do it by telephone?
Hannah will be sorting that out.
Madam Chair, hey, look, I'll have to leave you shortly. I've got an off-site meeting at 1 o'clock and won't be back until probably 2:30.
Okay, sure.
So I'm going to give myself a bit of drive time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know. We're just having a bit of connection problems with
yeah, and I'll see that.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Your Worship.
I believe Ms. Dahlberg is calling in now.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm thinking if she's having connection problems, it may be easier for her to potentially reschedule her and suggest that she goes to a council building such as a library. I'm not sure. Ah, here it is.
Kia ora, this is Anna. Are you ready for me?
Good afternoon, Anna. Ms. Dahlberg, indeed we are ready for you and we can hear you. Thank you very, very much for persevering. I realise this must have been very fractious for you. But now we have you here. We have your submission. We've read your submission and you've got 10 minutes to tell us what you want us to think about. Thank you.
Okay, hi. So kia ora. I'm actually a registered nurse. I work on Healthline and I do that to support Pause a While Animal Sanctuary, which is located just out of Raglan. My main rescue is cows, got bobby calves and dogs amongst other animals. There's approximately 50 to 60 rescued animals at any one time here. And I can work anywhere from 80 hours a week to around the clock if there's any animals that are ill. And that's 365 days a year. I don't get days off. At any one time, I will have around about 7 to 10 rescued dogs living here. Most are too old, abused or unwell to be rehomed. They are referred from either vets, pounds, other sanctuaries, or people that just ring us up and say we have a really badly abused dog. I work alongside several other rescues and quite often they are animals that the pound or SPCA refuse to go out and pick up. Some have been extremely badly abused. Raglan Nexa Vet has 2 of my current dogs were referred to me from them. They were both farm dogs, by the way. One was going to be euthanized, and he is actually a purebred Huntaway who was brought up from the South Island, and the vet asked me if I'd take him because he was a beautiful boy, and the farmer wanted him put down because he had hip dysplasia. So he's obviously cost us a lot of money to keep him, but he's a beautiful boy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him except that probably there was way too much breeding done to make him into a specialised farm dog. The other one, she had worked on her farm all her life. Apparently she was the top farm dog at the farmer's place. But she'd spent the last year of her life at the farm locked in a cage pretty much 24/7, and the farmer was also going to have her put down because he didn't have time to look after her. She was 12 years old when we got her. She has just had her 15th birthday with us. So she's 15 years old now, an old girl, and it's a shame you can't see the faces of these dogs. None of them are vicious, none of them are violent, none of them tear up people's throats. They're all just beautiful dogs that want love and care and attention. They get the utmost best life here. I was going to show you around the place so you could see what we call the dog limo, which we've got specially set up for dogs. We have on my fridge a beautiful medicines blackboard for all the medicines that each of the dogs are on daily. 6 of the dogs are all elderly. They pretty much all of them are on specialty diets. They're all on top diets. None of them are on cheap diets. They're all extremely healthy. Apart from one who's in hospital at the moment with some liver failure from an infection she got, but it was nothing to do with anything here. They're all fully vaccinated. They're all wormed regularly. They're all on supplements, and they're all well looked after. The majority of the money comes from my part-time wage as a nurse. So I work, like I said, very long hours. I was working till late last night, and then I had what I call a sleep-in till 7 a.m. this morning, and I still haven't washed my face or had breakfast because the animals always come first. We occasionally get some fundraising or donations through our Pause a While page, which you're more than welcome to look at. We currently have 5 dogs that are ex-farm dogs. All the rest are from homes within towns, either single dog homes or were dumped. None are from lifestyle homes where there were multiple dogs. We run at a constant loss here, and permits would put a huge strain on the sanctuary. I noticed there was no exemption for sanctuaries, yet farmers whom I am rescuing dogs from have exemptions, and that is beyond me. Some of the dogs I have rescued from farms were in appalling conditions, and I was going to be able to show you the faces of these dogs. Some I couldn't even lift a hand up because they were so fearful. They'd be cowering in a corner for 15, 20 minutes. And a lot of work and effort goes into loving these dogs and bringing them back to being social, happy dogs that know love and have had a good life. And I'm always very grateful when they've actually spent more time with me at the sanctuary, knowing they've had loving life than the amount of time they had in an abusive situation. They all get to sleep in the winter by the fire, and in the summer we have a stream that they can go down to and play in. To me, we are doing a community service helping dogs, and we, like I said, we receive absolutely no assistance from government subsidies or anything from the council to help us out at all. In fact, if anything, we're having to pay just as much as anybody else, and nothing's ever been offered to us to help out. And yet I feel like we're being punished instead of offered public funding to help us. So I really believe we should be actually supported by the council. My latest dog was a dog that came from the pound, who me and my housemate, we travelled down just after Christmas. He was going to be put down on Christmas Eve because he was basically in the way at the pound. He was a dog that wasn't getting any interest. There was nothing wrong with him. There was no interest coming his way, and he had some health issues. He needed operations on his eyes, and of course people don't want to work over Christmas, so his euthanasia date was Christmas Eve. And in conjunction with Iran Rescue, we rescued Ollie, and he is now living here, possibly permanently because he is deaf. We have paid for the, between Iran Rescue and ourselves, we have paid for his operations on his eyes, and now he's in much better health. He's he's put on weight, and he's free of fleas. He's been vaccinated, and he will probably reside with us for the rest of his days due to the way the fact that he's deaf and some of his health issues.
Ms. Darford, can I ask you a question here?
Mm-hmm.
You think you've got a couple of points in your submission, and you've made the point very clearly on how where you see sanctuaries and rescue places standing. But you make a point, and I just would like a quick comment on it. You make a point about dog parks, and it hasn't been raised by anybody else, but elderly or isolated people, you see dog parks as a place where people can meet. Do you just want to expand on that very briefly in the 30 seconds that we've got left?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, dog parks are really important for socialising. I think there's a lot of elderly people, there's a lot of young children that really enjoy dogs. And when you're cutting out the dog parks, one thing, the dogs aren't getting to socialise, and people, lazy people, have an excuse not to walk their dogs anymore, which causes these social issues with barking, aggression, that sort of thing. But also elderly people do love to come down and meet dogs. The number of elderly people I've met, and to make it even harder for them to get to access these places, I think is really difficult. I think, you know, a lot of them, they want their dogs to socialise, to meet other dogs. I think dog parks and off-lead areas are so important for dogs, not to be neglected, like I said, to stop all these antisocial behaviours like barking and stuff, but also people get to meet there, they get to exercise,
and I think
they get to socialise with other humans.
Thank you. And
dogs are a great way to meet other humans. So that's a huge talking point.
Your point about people, I think, is a very important one. Look, your time is up, but I do appreciate your perseverance in getting through. And I was thinking, oh, I bet it's Raglan and the internet problems, which I shouldn't think. Look, thank you very much. We really appreciate your submission, and also thank you for the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening to us. Okay.
Thank you. Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ms. Clark, I think that brings us to the end of our morning session. Correct?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. There you are. So if it's now, we're going